Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to a new project. We're going to be building a pet finding application. We're going to use the Petfinder API, which is a really cool API that gives us a lot of information on pets around your area that are in shelters that need adoption and so on. So basically, this is the application we'll be building. We're even going to deploy it to a subfolder on my VPS. And I'm going to take this right off, so I'm not going to leave it up or anything. But let's just take a look at it. So if we wanted to search for like a dog, and we wanted the zip code 90210, and we went for a search here, you'll see we'll find dogs in that area. And it pulls quite a bit of information: the name of the animal, the age, the breed. We have the address, which I'm assuming is the shelter, the phone number, the email if there is one, and then a shelter ID and also an image. And you can see we're using Bootstrap for the layout, and it's completely responsive. And if we open up the Chrome console here, we're also logging each one, and you can see the information that's available. So there's even more stuff like the description. As far as options, we have like if the animal had its shots or not, if it's been altered, if it has had kids. So there's a lot of stuff in this little API, which I may use to build a bigger React application in one of my courses. I'm not sure yet. I may even contact the creators of it and talk to them about it, because I really like it. I think it's pretty useful. And you can also do searches by city and state instead of zip code as well. But basically, this is the docs for the API. Now, since we're making cross-domain requests, we have to use JSONP, okay? So when we use JSONP, we have to include a callback parameter in the request. In this example, they're using jQuery, but we're not using jQuery. Everything's going to be done in vanilla JavaScript. But we are going to use a package called Fetch-JSONP, which works like the Fetch API, but allows us to use JSONP. And you can see down here, we can include this JSONP callback function. Now, since we're using this package, we're also going to create a custom module for validation. We're going to be using Parcel to bundle our assets together, and it makes things easier, and it makes it easy to deploy. It'll basically create everything as a static asset. We'll also use Babel, and then we'll be able to just take the Dist folder that it creates and upload it to a server. And the validation I didn't show you. If we do something that is not a correct zip code, we're going to get a little Bootstrap error here. So we'll create a little validation module to do that and to show that alert. Put that in the DOM. So that's what we'll be building, guys. Hopefully you like it. It's going to take about 45 minutes or so. I would suggest coding along with me. I think you get the most out of it when you do that rather than just watching it. But that's it. Let's go ahead and get started. Right, guys, so the first thing you're going to want to do here is register to get an API key for the Petfinder API. So if you go to petfinder.com/developers/API key, you'll see a login screen. And unless you already have an API key, you probably don't have a login. So you're going to want to click right here on this link and just register, sign up. Probably have to just confirm your email and then come back and log in, and you'll get your key. So once you get that, we want to get started. And like I said, we'll be using Parcel, which is a build tool that's similar to Webpack, except it's much easier to use. There's less configuration. So you're going to need to install this, and as you can see here, you can install it with either Yarn, the Yarn package manager, or NPM. And I always use NPM, so that's what we'll be using. You do need to have Node.js installed, so if you don't, just go to nodejs.org and download and install it. So what I have here is my VS Code text editor, and I'm using the integrated terminal. I have a blank folder called Find a Pet. That's where this application is going to be created. So if you don't have Parcel installed already, you want to do npm install, or -g for global, and then parcel-bundler. Okay, make sure you do parcel-bundler and not just Parcel. And if you're on Mac or Linux, you need to do sudo before that. So I already have it installed. I'm not gonna run it, but once you have that, let's create our package.json file. I'm just gonna do npm init and add -y so that I don't have to answer any questions, and it just gives me the defaults. So now you'll see I have a package.json file. Now what I'm gonna do is just install a couple dependencies. So we're gonna want the Fetch-JSONP package. We're going to want Babel core, and we're going to want the Babel preset, the env preset, which is babel-preset-env. Okay, so we used to use Babel preset ES 2015, but now with ES 2016, 2017, and so on, env takes care of all of that, compiling all that stuff. So we're going to install these three things. And I apologize if I start sweating. I can't record with the AC on. It's too loud, so it gets quite hot in here. And I actually already did this whole project with the AC on, but I wasn't happy with how it came out because it was too loud, and I tried to use sound reduction in the software, and it just didn't sound right, so I'm redoing the whole thing. So now that those are installed, let's go ahead and let's create an index.html file. And let's add some boilerplate with Emmet, and we'll change the title here to find a pet. And we're going to use Bootstrap. Now I'm just going to use the Bootstrap Cdn. So if we go to getbootstrap.com and go to get started, I'm just going to grab this CSS link here. And I'm not going to grab the jQuery and the JavaScript stuff because we really don't need it. We're not using it for anything. But if you want to, you can include it, but I'm not going to. Okay, so now what we'll do is in our body, let's just put an H1 and say hello and save this. And now what I'm going to do is run this file with Parcel. Okay, so when I run the Parcel command, we can say Parcel or parcel.index.html, but I'll just run Parcel. And what it's going to do is it does two things. It creates a Dist folder, which is basically the static assets, the version of the production version of our application that we would deploy. And then it also runs a server on localhost port 1234. So let's go ahead and open that up. So if we go to localhost :1234, we should see hello. All right, so that's our application running in the browser. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to keep this running, just make it smaller, and I'm going to actually, one thing I forgot to do is since we're using Babel, we want to create a file called .babelrc, and that's where we want to define our presets. So this is just a simple JSON object with presets, and it takes in an array of presets, and we're just using env. Okay, if you were using like React with Parcel, you'd install the React preset and you'd put that in here like that, but we're not using React, so we're just going to go ahead and keep that and save it, close it up, and now let's start to build our UI real quick. All right, so this is going to be pretty simple. We're going to have a header. We're using Bootstrap, so let's add some classes like BG Light, which will give it a light gray background. We're going to use text center. Let's see, we're going to use MB4, which is a margin bottom class. It's going to push everything down. And then let's add some padding. So P3 will give it padding all around. And then in the header, you could just do an H1 if you want, but I actually have a logo that I'm going to put in. So I'm going to create a folder called Assets. And inside there, let's create a folder called IMG. And then what I'm going to do is open this in my on my file system, go into that folder, and I'm going to just grab the image real quick. And you can get this in the GitHub. You can get this in the description, the link in the description. Let's see, new Finder window. Where is it? Code dev. Find a pet. All right, so I'm just going to grab the logo and paste it in here. So now that's in there, and I can just go ahead and put an image tag, and the source will go to assets/image/logo. And then in the alt, I'm just going to do find a pet like that. All right, so let's save this, and it should update. So we should be able to go back and reload, and there we go. So we have our little header with our logo. All right, so let's continue with the UI. Next, we want the form, so it's going to go under the header. We're going to put a container class, and let's put a form with the ID of pet form so we can grab onto it in the JavaScript. We don't need an action attribute. All right, so let's see. Inside this form, we're going to have a form group class, form group. And let's see, in this form group, we're going to have a label for animal. We'll say animal, and then underneath that will be our select, and this is going to have an ID of animal, and then a class of form control, and let's also do a class of form control LG, and let's also do a class of margin bottom 3. Okay, and this select does not need a name, just needs the ID, so we can grab onto it. All right, then we'll have, let's say, 4 options. So the first one will be cat. We'll say cat. This one will be dog. And bird. And this one will be barnyard. So like, I don't know, pigs, cows, and shit. All right. So let's save that. Let's take a look at it. Let's reload. There we go. So we have a select list. Now I'm going to show you something in the documentation of the API real quick. So if we go down, let's see. So we have the endpoint, or the URL API pet finder, and then we'll see this my.method, and this is a placeholder for the methods that are available, such as breed list, which will return a list of breeds for a particular animal. We have pet.get, which returns a single record for a single pet. Pet get random will return a random pet, and then pet.find is what we're going to use. This is what will actually display like a bunch of pets, a bunch of animals. There's also like shelter.find if you wanted to return a collection of shelters. There's actually a lot you can do here. Now in this pet.find, it takes in a couple required params, like the key, you need your API key, and then you also need a location, which can be a zip code, a city, a state. We're just going to be using a zip code. And then we also want to have the animal. That's what the select list is. And you can see right here, type of animal, barnyard, bird, cat, dog, horse, reptile, small furry, and I think there's more as well, but we're just going to use those 4 that I showed you. So that's kind of where I got this from. It has to match one of these. And then you can also like add breed or size, sex, age, stuff like that. So this is you can build a really big application with this API, and I'm actually thinking of doing that in a React course. When I do my React course, I may use this as a back end and then build a whole front end application that connects to it and shows all kinds of stuff, shelters, and you know, uses pagination, all kinds of stuff like that. So let's go back. I just wanted to show you guys that real quick. Let's go back to the form here, and we're going to put in an input underneath the select with an ID of zip. This is going to be for the zip code, and we're going to add a class of form control and also form control dash LG. And let's add a placeholder as a label, and we'll just say enter your zip code. All right, so underneath that, let's put a submit button. So I'm going to say input with the type of submit. The value I'll say find, and then let's give it some Bootstrap classes. So btn dash dark. Let's do btn dash LG, make it bigger. btn block, we'll make it a block level element, and then let's do mt3, which is margin top 3. Okay, and then underneath the form is where we want to have the output. Okay, when we do a search, we want those results. So all that stuff is going to happen in JavaScript. We make the request. We're going to kind of build you know, add on to the DOM through JavaScript, but we need a placeholder. So we're going to have a div with the ID of results. All right, and then we just want to then create a folder called JS, and inside that JS folder, let's create a new file called main.js, and let's link that file in our HTML. So right above the body, we'll say script source js / main.js. Okay, and that should be it for our HTML. Let's check it out. Let's see, let's go back here and reload. Good, let's open up our Chrome tools, our console, and I just want to make sure that the JavaScript is being linked. So I'll just do a console.log 1, 2, 3, save that, and let's go back, and you can see that that's being logged. Good. So now we can close up our HTML. We don't need that anymore. Everything else is happening in JavaScript. So let's see, we want to bring in, okay, we want to import Fetch-JSONP, sorry about that. We want to Fetch-JSONP from Fetch-JSONP. That's what we're going to be using to make our request. And then let's create a variable for our form. So we'll say pet form and set that to document dot, I'm going to use query selector, and it has an ID of pet-form. Okay, so we're going to get that, and then we want to add an event listener to that to listen for a submit. So we'll say pet form dot add event listener, not that, add event listener, and we want to listen for a submit event, and then when that happens, we're going to run a function called fetch animals. Okay, so let's go down here, let's put a comment, we'll say fetch animals from API. And we'll create a function called fetch animals. And since this is part of the event listener and it's on a submit, what we want to do is pass in an event object here, and we want to call e.prevent default. Otherwise, it's just going to try to submit the form as normal, like to a file, and we don't want that. We wanted to basically stop that from happening. Then we want to get the user input. So let's say get user input. So we want the animal that's being put in by the select list. So we'll say document.query selector. And that input had an ID of animal. Now, since it's an input, we want the value. So don't forget the dot value. Otherwise, you're just getting the element. Okay, same thing with the zip, had an ID of zip. So let's go over here, zip. All right, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and fetch our pets, our animals, whatever. So we're going to use the Fetch-JSONP. Okay, so Fetch-JSONP, and inside here we're going to put some backticks. And we want to put our URL, which is HTTP. It's going to be api.petfinder.com, and then we have a bunch of query strings or parameters we want to add here. The first, so actually we want to do slash and then the method, which is pet.find. Remember I showed you those methods. And then we want to put a question mark, and first one is going to be the format, and the format we want is JSON, because you can also get this. Actually, we don't want caps, just JSON. You can also get this as XML. Okay, you can also use this as an XML API, but who uses XML anymore? And then we want to do ampersand key, and then this is where you want to enter your key. I'm going to grab mine. Make sure you use your own. This one will be disabled anyways. So I'll paste that in. So there's our key. Next thing we're going to want is the animal. So let's do ampersand animal equals, and then we're going to put in the variable of animal, which is whatever comes in from the form. And then we want the location, so ampersand location, and that's going to be the zip. Okay, so we have the zip, and then the last thing we want is the callback. So we'll say ampersand callback and set that equal to callback. All right, now with JSONP, let's go back to the docs here. Where is it? So we want to do this right here, JSON callback function, and then put in callback here as a second parameter to what we just did. So let's put a comma here, put in an object, and say JSONP callback function, set that to callback like that. All right. And let's just put that function down here. So we'll say JSONP callback. We'll just say function callback, and that will actually take in the data. And I'm just going to console.log data. All right, now this is going to give us a promise back, just like the Fetch API does. So we want to do a .then, And just like the Fetch API, we want to take the response and we want to map it to JSON. So res.json, and then we do another dot then, and that's where we get the data. Okay, and we're just going to, for now, console.log the data. And then if something goes wrong, that will go off in the dot catch. Okay, if the promise is rejected, it'll give us an error, and then we'll just console.log the error like that. All right, so we should at least be able to submit the form and then get the data and log it in the console. So let's save this and let's give it a shot. So we'll go back here, make sure your JavaScript console is open, and we'll reload, and we'll do 90210 and find, and this is what we get back. Okay, so this is an object that has this encoding version. That's not important to us. What we want to look at is Petfinder. And then inside Petfinder, there's some more stuff like the header with the timestamp, all that. The last offset, which is the number of animals returned. And then pets has another, it has an array in it called pet. And that's what we're interested in. That's what has all of these animals in all of these fields. All right, so remember that it's Petfinder pets, petfinder.pets.pet, and that's the array. Okay, so we know that we're at least making a successful request. So now what we're going to do is, instead of console logging the data, let's call a function called show animals, because that's what we want to do ultimately, is show them on the page. Now I don't want to pass in just data, because you just saw what we get. We get all that crazy stuff. So we want to narrow it down to .petfinder.pets.pet. Okay, that's what's going to give us that array of pets. So now we'll create that function. We'll say show listings of pets. So function show animals. Did I say show listing? Yeah, show animals, that's fine. And that's going to take in the pets. Okay, it's going to take in the pets array, which comes from this right here, that comes from the API. Now, we want to latch on to the results. Remember, we have that ID of results. That's where we want to output everything. So I'm going to put that as a variable. So results equals document dot query selector, and we want the ID of results. Okay, now what we want to do here is we want to clear everything out, because if we get, like, let's say we say dog in a zip code, and we get a listing of dogs, and then we don't refresh the page, and then we say cat and we hit submit again, the cats are going to be put under the dogs. So we want the dogs to go away first and then put the cats in. So we want to just, actually I'll put a comment here, and let's just say clear first. So results, we'll say results.inner HTML equals nothing. Okay, just to clear it out. And then we can proceed to kind of loop through all the pets. So let's say loop through pets. So we'll take that pets array, we'll call a for each on it. And there's a bunch of different ways you could do this. I like to use for each. Takes in a callback. I'm going to use an arrow. And then for each pet, let's use the variable pet. Doesn't that make sense? And when we loop through these, what we want to do is basically, let's first of all just make sure that this works. So we'll console log pet. Okay, so we should at least just see it in the console. So I'm going to reload. Let's do 90210. Okay, so now we're seeing them all in the console, which is good. But we want to output them onto the page. So a few things we need to do. We're going to basically create a new div to put into the DOM. Okay, for each one will be a new div. We want to add a couple classes because we want them to be Bootstrap cards. So they need the class of a card and card body and so on. So let's create a variable called div, and we'll set it to document.createElement, which does just that, creates a new element, and it's going to be a div element. Okay, then we're going to take that div and we're going to call .ClassList.add, because we want to add some classes. We want to add the class of card. Okay, we want to add the class of card body, and we want to add the class of MB3 because we want each card of the pet to have a little space underneath, little margin. Okay, so now let's take care of what's in that div. So we'll do div.innerHTML, set that to a set of backticks, and then we're going to continue to basically fill the card. So we're going to use the grid system in here. So let's say div class equals row. Basically, one side will have the information, one side will have the image. So let's do two columns, two six column divs. So div class equals call-sm6 div, and let's do another one of these. So div class equals call sm6. Okay, and then let's see, in this one here, let's put, this is going to have a whole bunch of information, but we'll have an h4, and let's put the pet name, okay, the animal's name. So we're going to use this syntax so we can put a variable in, and remember we have this pet to work with. For each iteration we have this pet variable, okay, and then we can access stuff from the API. So we can say pet.name, and then we're going to do this here, which may look a little weird, and I'll show you why we have to do this. So $T. Now, a lot of people, when they start learning about APIs and getting data from alternate sources like this, you have to go by the way their API is structured. Now, you may say, what the hell is $T? Is that something to do with JavaScript? No, it's not. It has to do with their API. So if we look at one of their responses here, and we look at name, which is what we're getting now, you'll see inside name, they have this $T. Every field they have this. Okay, so that's why we're including it, because that's what we get back. So that's what we're including. Okay, we have to follow their rules. Just like to get the photo, you'll see we get this media object with this photos object, and then this photo array. And then we pick one of these by size, let's say 3, and then we do $T. So to get this photo right here, we would do pet.media.photos.photo 3 brackets 3 to get this one, and then $T. So you got to follow the rules of the API, and you have to look at the response to know what to put in. And I think that confuses a lot of people. So in these parentheses next to it, I'm going to put the age. So we're going to do pet.age.$T. All right, now before we add all the rest of the stuff, I want to make sure it actually works. So what we're going to do is go right under where we have the inner HTML that we're creating here. We're going to take the results. Okay, remember we put that results variable, which holds the results element, and then we're going to do an append child and then throw in that new div that we created, okay, that we've been adding on to here. We're going to append that to the results ID, putting it inside of it. So let's save that. Let's go back and let's hit find, and there we go. So we're getting, let's see, why is that callback is undefined? Hold on. Let's try that again. Okay, so now we're getting all these names along with the age, or whatever, baby, young, adult. So that's good. We know that we're fetching the stuff from the API. We're able to actually put it in the application, in the UI. So now we need to finish that up. So under the H4, we're going to have the breed, which I'll put in a paragraph. I'm going to give this a class of text secondary to make it just a little lighter, like a light gray. So to get the breed, we want to do pet.breeds.breed.$T. And again, we're following the response API, which it's not being logged anymore, so I can't show you, but that's just how it's structured. Actually, you know what? Let's continuously log, just so we can see what we get back. So right here, we'll just keep that console log. All right, so if we go ahead and run this, and now you'll see here, we get the breeds, and then inside that breed and then the money sign T, and you can see that that's being displayed here. All right, so underneath the breeds, we want the address. So we're going to have a paragraph, and then we're going to do, and all this stuff is located in contact, so it's in pet.contact, and then the street is actually address 1. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that. That's going to give us the street. Then I'm going to put next to it the city. So pet contact city. Oops, I forgot the money sign T. We need that. Copy this. And then we'll do the state. So city, state, and then we'll do the zip. So I want it all kind of on one line. All right, and then under that, we want to do basically like the contact info. So that'll be in a UL with the class of list group. And let's put an LI in here with the class of list group item. And this is going to be the phone. So actually I'm going to put in like a label here, phone colon, and then we'll do pet.contact.phone.money sign T. Okay, so that should give us the phone. We can check it out so far. So let's see, find, and there we go. And yeah, so phone. And then let's do the email. Now the email, not all listings have an email, so we're going to do a conditional here using a ternary operator. So let's do pet.contact.email.money sign T, and we're going to stay within these curly braces here, and we're going to put a question mark. So this is a ternary. We're basically saying if this is there, if this is something, then what do we want to do? We want to display more backticks and put a whole list item in like this, like we did here with the phone, except it'll be email, and this will be email. Okay, and then else, which we use a colon for, it'll be just empty, so just empty backticks. Okay, and then we want the shelter ID as a list item, so I'm going to copy this LI again, go right under this conditional email we just did, and we'll say shelter ID, and let's do contact.shelter uppercase ID like that. And I think that should be good for that side. Now the image is going to go over here, so I'm going to put a class of text center right here. And this goes back to the last video I did about Bootstrap, and you just see how convenient this is. If we didn't have Bootstrap, I would have to go through and create a whole style sheet for you guys. The video would be twice as long. So it's fantastic for things like this when you're trying to just learn something and also make it look decent without creating a whole custom monolithic style sheet. So, you know, it's a big reason for that video. But anyways, let's create an image here. So let's do image source. And let's see. So the source is going to be, as I showed you before, it's going to be in pet.media.photos.photo, which is an array. We're going to grab the third one because that's the size that I want. And then we're going to do .money sign T. So that should give us the actual image. And then this image will have a couple Bootstrap classes, so img fluid, which kind of keeps it in its place in its container. We're also going to do rounded dash circle, which will make it rounded. And let's do margin top 2 to push it down a little bit. Okay, and I think that's it. So let's save this stuff, and let's go back and find. Cannot read property T of undefined. Let's see. 50. What did I do wrong here? Probably got a field wrong. Let's see. Pet.contact.email. pet.media photos.photo. Hold on a second. Let's try this again. I might just need to reload 902.10. 24. Okay, that's just the error. Yeah, I get something that's not right in this area. Ah, the shelter ID. The shelter ID is not part of contact. All right, let's try that. There we go. All right, so now we're getting all the stuff we need. You can see, does any of these have emails? Because the email, again, is conditional. That not all listings have them. Let's see, is there any with emails? Right here. So here's one. So you can see that it's conditional. All right. Cool. So now that that's done, basically we can fetch the animals. I want to fix it because if we put in something that's not a correct zip code, actually, let me just reload this and do it. So we'll just put in something like that. We're just going to get this error here, and it doesn't tell the user anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file, a new JavaScript file inside JS called validate.js. And in here, we're going to create a function to validate a zip code. Okay, so we'll say export so that we can access it from outside of this file. Function is valid zip code, or is valid zip, we'll call it. Okay, and obviously it takes in a zip. And then we're just going to use a regular expression. We're going to say return, and then I'm going to paste in the regular expression, which is not that difficult. It's just it can be a 5-digit zip code or a 9-digit. So a regular expression is wrapped in these slashes, and then we have from the beginning we want a digit, a 5 place digit, and then we can have a dash and then 4 more digits, which is optional, okay, which is the question mark. So it can be either 5 or it can be 5 dash and then the 4. You know, the US has the 2 different types of zip codes. And then we just want to do .test and then pass in the actual zip that we're testing, and this will return either true or false based on if it matches, and that's it. That's all we need. So save that. And like I said, or I don't know if I said it, but I showed you that we're going to have the Bootstrap error, the nice red alert, rather than just the regular JavaScript alert. But I'm going to test it out first with just the standard JavaScript alert. So let's import, what do I call it, is valid zip. Let's bring that in from ./validate. And we want to go right under where the user input is, and let's say validate zip. So we'll say if is valid zip, pass in the zip, which is what the user types in. So actually what we want to do is say if it's not a valid zip, then let's just do a standard alert for now and say we'll say please enter a valid zip code. Okay, so let's try that out. We'll go back and let's reload this, just put something stupid in here and find, and we get please enter a valid zip code. Okay, we're still going to get this error over here. What I actually want to do is return after that. So this return will return out of this fetch animals function, so that we shouldn't even see that. So let's try like 9021 and find, and we just get the alert, and that's it. Now let's construct a better looking alert. So in the validate.js, that's where I'm going to put this. I'm going to say display alert message. We're going to export the function alert message By the way, we did this in my Modern JavaScript from the Beginning course in a couple projects, I think. Actually, let's call this show alert. Just don't call it alert. And this will take in a message, and it'll also take in a class name, because with Bootstrap you have like alert danger, alert success, alert warning, and they all have different colors. Obviously you don't want an error message in green or a success message in red. So you want to be able to, oh man, sorry about that guys, hold on. Orlando, Florida, probably a bill collector. So in here what we want to do is construct a div. So let's say create div by saying const div. Same thing we did when we created the card div. We're going to do document dot create element, and it's going to be a div element. Okay, we want to add classes, so let's say div dot, and I'm just going to do class name, so we can set the class name this way as well. Put some backticks in here, and with Bootstrap you have to do alert, and then you also have to do like alert danger, like that. So it's up to us. I don't want to have to pass in both of these into the parameter. So this alert will definitely leave. You could just put the class name. Whoops, we got to put this syntax. You could just do class name like that, but then they have to actually pass in like alert dash danger, alert dash success. If you want them to be able to just do success or danger or warning, then you could just do this alert dash, and then that would just basically get concatenated on. So I think we'll do that. And then we want to add the text. So we want to take the div and we want to append a child to it. So basically insert something into it, and we want to create a text node. So you say document.create text node, and the text is going to be the message that's passed in. So it's going to be this right here. All right. Then what we want to do is we need to figure out where we want to put it. Now I want to put it, if we look at our HTML, right between this div of container and this form of pet form, so right inside here. So we have to actually bring these two elements in. So let's do get container. So we'll say const container equals document dot query selector, and it has a class of container, so dot container. And let's also get the form, so we'll say const form equals document dot query selector, and we want the ID of pet form. Okay, so we'll get those two. Then what we want to do is insert the alert, and we do that by taking the container, which is the parent, the upper object, and then we want to call insert before, and we want to pass in what we want to insert, which is the div we just constructed, the alert, and we want to insert it before the form. Okay, so if we look at our index.html, it'll get inserted before this form, so right in the middle there is where I want it. Oops. Okay, now this takes care of showing the alert. What about getting rid of it? It's not a dismissible alert. We could do that, but we didn't even include the Bootstrap JavaScript. So what I want to happen is I want it to go away after 3 seconds. So what we can do is we can do a set timeout, and set timeout takes in a callback function. I'm just going to use an arrow function, and then we can say document dot get, let's do document dot query selector, and let's get the alert. We know it's always going to have a class of alert, so we'll get it like that, and then we'll just call dot remove, which will get rid of it. Now it's inside a set timeout, which takes a function, which is what this is, and then it also takes the time as a second parameter, which I'm going to do 3000 milliseconds, which is 3 seconds. So what's going to happen is this is going to run after 3 seconds. So the alert will show from all of this, and then 3 seconds later it's going to be removed from the DOM. Okay, that's the functionality I want. So let's save that. Let's go back to main.js and let's bring in show alert from validate. Let's go down here and let's replace this alert with show alert. And remember, it takes in a message, which we can just leave that one, and then a class, which I'm going to pass in danger. So let's try it out. We'll save it. We'll go back. Let's reload. Let's just do something like that. Find, and there we go. 3 seconds later, should go away. Awesome. And even if I do 9021, please enter a valid zip code. If I do 9021001, valid zip code, let's do a correct one. Find, and it works. Awesome. So that is pretty much it, guys. That's our application. Now, it's very simple, but you know, I mean, it actually is a helpful application if you're looking for a pet to adopt in your area. It's why I think it's a really cool API. You can build some really nice stuff with it, especially if you use something like React or Vue or Angular. You can create a pretty in-depth application with routing and stuff like that. But I just kind of wanted to introduce you to it. I also wanted to do something in just vanilla JavaScript because we don't see enough of that, you know, in tutorials and stuff. So now it's time to deploy this. Now, if we go to, let's see, let's go here. We have a Dist folder that is actually created when we run Parcel. I could actually delete this though. I can get rid of it. And then I can go down here and stop my server, and I can run Parcel build, and that will build the Dist folder again. Okay, so notice the Dist folder has just a bunch of static assets. It has the HTML, it has the logo, it has the JavaScript. If we had CSS, it would have that as well. And what I'm going to do is just upload this to a subfolder on traversymedia.com. Okay, so I'm going to just do it through FTP, just very simple. I'm going to delete it right after. So I'm not going to show my FTP client on camera because just for security reasons. But what I'm doing is creating a new directory called find a pet. Okay, so I'm creating a directory called find a pet right in my public HTML. And then what I'm going to do is go into this HTML in the Dist folder, and since I'm uploading to a subfolder, I have to change the reference to the JavaScript file and to the logo file, or it's not going to be able to find them. Now, if you're deploying to a root domain, you know, using whatever, GitHub pages or whatever it may be, you're not going to have to do this. But if you have it actually in a subfolder like I am, you're going to have to put the name of the subfolder here. And mine's find a pet. So I'm just going to do that. And then right here, find a pet slash. And then I'll save that. Now I have the prettier extension, so when I saved it, it automatically made everything prettier. Now I'm going to just change the name of this file in the Dist folder to index.html. Okay, and then it should be ready to upload. So what I'm going to do is I'll go to my Finder. Let's see, it's opening up. Yep, so in the Dist folder, I'm going to take everything here and just bring it over to my FTP client and upload it. Okay, it's all uploaded. Now what we'll do is go open a new tab, and we'll go to traverssymedia.com/findapet. And there we go. So let's try the validation. That works. Let's try to search for barnyard animals, and let's do, we'll do 01860, and there we go. We get like pigs and shit, which I am not interested in. They friggin' smell. But yeah, so you can see all the information that's being pulled in, and we have a working application that's connected to an API that is live on the internet. All right, so thanks guys, thanks for watching. I will have this code on GitHub, so you can check that out if you want. If you did like the video, please leave a like, and I will see you next time.